I'm Sara Kogon, and today I'm going to be making Hamantaschen for the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining me for today's cooking show. This recipe is really easy, and it's just what I'm going to show you is one way that you can make them, and I'll talk to you about different variations as we go through the process. But as you know, Hamantaschen are a traditional food that we create for Purim, and Purim is a holiday that basically follows the general theme of all Jewish holidays, which is they tried to kill us, they didn't, and so let's eat. So to start today's recipe, I'm going to preheat the oven to 375. Get out your mixer, and you can use a hand mixer. Anything will work. Have everything prepared here. This is basically a very simple sugar cookie. So we can make this parve or dairy. I'm going to make it dairy today because I think that butter, when it comes to baking, is the best thing that you can use. But you can use margarine. Some people will be able to tell the difference in the taste, but I can't tell. Can't usually tell the difference. So I have 6 tablespoons of butter here that I've left out to soften. Just about 30 minutes on the counter. You can melt it, but usually with baking, it's better just to let the butter soften a little bit before you start working with it. So I'm going to put this butter right in here in the mixer. Let's get all of that out. All of that good stuff. And then I'm going to cream it together with a cup of sugar, just regular white sugar. And like I said, I think there's as many Hamantaschen recipes out there as I could possibly think of, but this is my family's favorite. So let me just start this mixer going, and I'm just going to cream it together, just lock that down a little bit with the sugar. You're going to be so amazed at how easy this is. So Purim, for my family, is a pretty special time because Ross, my husband, and I, we knew each other for quite a while before we actually started dating, but he actually asked me out for the first time at a Purim party. So now I've creamed my butter and my sugar together, and I'm just gonna crack one large egg into the mix. Just gonna get that going a little bit. And just turning up the speed of the mixer a little bit. In a lot of recipes, people tell you to sift flour, but in my opinion today, flour is sifted so well that, before it's processed, that's really a step that you don't have to take. And for me, it's like, I've got a little baby, I don't have time to sift anything. So in my recipe, you take 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of white flour, regular flour, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and this is how I mix them. One into the other. And then I have my butter and my sugar and my egg in here. And I'm going to turn it down to stir in my mixer, just real low. And I'm just going to gradually add my flour mixture. And you'll see it's real dry. That's why we're going to add the milk in a second. Just adding that together. And I've done all sorts of variations with this dough. You can add cocoa powder, cinnamon, anything that you like to flavor a dough. Orange, lemon, all sorts of things. And you need to have fun with it. Some of the different variations we were thinking about is doing a cornbread type Hamantaschen with a cream cheese filling. You can do anything if you want. Okay. So we're just going to let that mix together a little bit. It's going to look real coarse. So in here, I have 4 tablespoons of milk. I used whole milk. Could probably use 2% milk. If you're making this recipe parve, you could use soy milk or even non-dairy creamer. This is the liquid that's going to help bind the dough together a little bit so that it's more workable. And there's a lot of Hamantaschen recipes that make a real dry dough. For example, you saw in this bowl, it's like real crumbly. A lot of recipes might just say to add just a tiny bit of liquid, and you're working with a real dry dough. I find that difficult in terms of molding the shapes of the triangles. So I add 4 tablespoons of milk. And this is really going to come together well for us. It's going to be a lot of fun getting it out of the mixer. Sometimes I turn up the speed a little bit to get everything out. In Ross's family, I think Grandma is, to me, Grandma and Aunt Ruth are the premier bakers and cooks in the family. I mean, they are famous for making everything you could possibly imagine. And every Friday, we go to Grandma's house. It's probably about 15 of us, maybe 15 to 20 every Friday. And Grandma makes everything, I mean, this enormous meal, okay? I'm talking about salad, roast, potatoes, I mean, more than you could ever imagine. And really, I mean, I've always, even before I met Ross, I've always been a cook. I can't really remember, I mean, my mom used to cook a little bit, but it wasn't her favorite thing to do. I mean, she made amazing spaghetti sauce and that sort of stuff. But the baking gene, I don't really know where I got it. It just sort of came out in me. And I was taking a Melton class. I guess it was a year after we got married. And I read something that women have 3 time-bound mitzvot. The first is to light candles on Shabbos. The second is mikvah. And the third is to bake challah. And I said, wow, I could do that. That's probably pretty easy. And our teacher at the time told us that she makes challah for every Friday. So I said, wow, I could probably do this. And it's such a shame that, you know, Grandma makes this amazing meal and we have store-bought challah. I could really participate and, you know, and help her by making this challah. So at that point, I just started making challah every week. And I really made the recipe. I make the dough in the bread maker, so it's pretty easy. The only kind of involved piece is that you have to set aside 3 hours, you know, to let the bread rise and then braid the bread and put it in the oven. So that was really where it started. And if I could bake challah, I could bake Hamantaschen, and I could, you know, make dairy meals for Shavuot. And, you know, Ross and I really just started having a lot of fun with it. So that's sort of how this all came out. And of course, in Ross's family, there's so many opportunities to bake. So when I bake this stuff, the object of the game is to get it out of my house as soon as possible and into the mouths of people who actually want to eat all these baked confections. So I have this dough here, and I want you to just come take a look at it. It's not dry, but it's not wet. So it's really like good sugar cookie dough. And let me just say, you could use this dough for any sugar cookie. Okay, like let's say you're making Hanukkah cookies and you have a great dreidel cookie cutter and a star. You could use this dough for that too. It's just a really good, easy, workable sugar cookie dough. And the thing, you know, we're kosher, and for us, it's great because you can make it parve or dairy, like I said. So, you know, the ideal is to make, you know, dairy. I think dairy pastries taste better, but I think with something like this, the difference between a parve cookie and a dairy cookie, probably people can't tell the difference that much. But we'll talk about fillings in a second, because some of the fillings that you might use, like chocolate or anything really interesting, there's probably a real difference between some milk fillings and some parve fillings. But we can talk about that. So, okay. So, look, I got this dough here, and it's really easy. Just work it into a ball, like that. And oftentimes I double this recipe, because my recipe is going to make about 12 to 18 Hamantaschen. And if you want to just, you know, crank out Hamantaschen rather than doing a batch at a time, you can easily double this recipe for the mixer. The mixer will be fine. We'll definitely hold it. So then what I do is I have a little piece of plastic wrap here, and I just wrap this dough right here into the plastic wrap, just like that. And I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. Now, there's a lot of people out there like who are working hard, who are raising kids, whatever, and you don't have time to finish the whole recipe in one day. That's totally fine. What you can do is just put this, sometimes I'll put it in a baggie, a Ziploc bag in the fridge. I say if you're doing the recipe all in one shot, put this in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. If you're going to wait and let's say do this part one day and then tomorrow you're going to make the cookies, before you take out, allot yourself about 20 minutes before you take the dough out of the fridge to let it just warm up a little bit, because 15 minutes in the fridge is really all it needs to get to a sort of a workable consistency. Okay. Okay, so that's been in there for 15 minutes, and I'm just going to take out my ball and see it's hard, and you'll see it warms up as you sort of start to work with it. All right, so I use a baking mat to roll out cookies, but really all this is like a soft piece of rubber that you can get anywhere, any kitchen supplies for, and it just protects your counters, and also it's easy to peel the cookies off of here. So let me just clear off my counter here. And what I recommend doing, okay, so here's my dough. The ball, we're going to work with it in thirds because to roll out that huge piece of dough would not work well. All right, so let me just tell you what I have. I've got a little bit of flour to work with. I'm going to put some flour on the baking mat or the counter or the wax paper or whatever you decide to. Only make this as involved as you want, okay? It doesn't have to be you don't have to have every single gadget known to man. Okay, so I've got my floured surface. I've got my dough. I've got a rolling pin. That's going to help you. You definitely need a rolling pin. I'm trying to think of things you could use instead of a rolling pin. Any sort of, round object that you could roll dough with. And then what I have here this is interesting because this is really like the only recipe that I've ever used parchment paper for. And I know that parchment, it is amazing. I know parchment paper seems a little involved, but just go with me here. You're not going to have messy pans. You're not going to, the bottoms of the Hamantaschen, once we bake them on parchment paper, come out perfect. 2 plain cookie sheets here, and I cover them with parchment paper. Okay, so I'm going to take off a little piece of my dough, and I'm going to put it here on the floured surface. Just pat it down a little bit. And then I'm going to take some flour and just put it on top of the dough, and also I'm going to put it on top of the rolling pin. And then I'm just going to roll it. And really, okay, so this is another personal preference thing. Some people like a cookie that's thick and, has a lot of volume, mass to it. I like thin cookies because I think they're more delicate. But it just depends. And you might have some family members who like thick cookies and some who like thin, and you're in luck because you can take this and make it whatever you want. Okay, so this is about I'd say a half an inch thick. And okay, this is the really technical part. You take a glass, a 3-inch in diameter glass or cookie cutter. I've yet to find a circular cookie cutter that's perfect for this. So a glass works really well, and it's not going to stick to the glass. And then I just make a circle like that. And I just peel it off. And this is my process is I make all the circles I can with the dough, and then I fill them later. So I put each circle on there, and then I just roll out the dough and keep doing it until I run out of daughter. She likes cookies. And she likes sugar cookies. I don't know if she's really acquired a taste for Hamantaschen yet, but we're just gonna keep trying. Rolled out our Hamantaschen dough, and we have our round circles. And I always make a little tiny ones for my daughter and also my husband because they like the mini ones. They just like to have a little taste. So it's fun to make those for the little kids. And probably you're gonna wanna, if you remember, to take them out of the oven just a little early, because you don't want them to get overdone. But honestly, if you leave them in the whole time, it's okay too. I mean, they'll just be a little more crisp. So the hard part, I think, about Hamantaschen for most people in their minds is filling the Hamantaschen and folding the Hamantaschen. It's really not that complicated, so I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's talk about fillings for a minute. Fillings, traditionally, when people of the older generation think about Hamantaschen, they think of mun, which is poppy seed and honey. Though there's a million recipes for mun. And they think of a prune filling. So when I make Hamantaschen, I make all sorts of different fillings for people. And I'm just going to tell you, in my experience, what's left over is the prune. So today, I was thinking about the different types of fillings I could show you. I'm going to make a really easy mun filling. A lot of people think of mun and they think about boiling down the poppy seeds, making them soft, and then adding a bunch of different ingredients. Sometimes they put prune and that sort of thing. I use a really simple recipe, which is just honey and poppy seeds. So you can buy a jar of poppy seeds at the store in the spice aisle, and that's about 1/8 of a pound, because when you're going to find recipes for MUN, it's 1/4 of a pound, 1/8 of a pound, all these different measurements for poppy seeds. But basically this is like 1/4 cup of poppy seeds. And then this measured out is about 1/2 cup of honey. So you just want to make sort of a paste out of the two. Now I could have boiled these down and made them a little softer, but honestly, in my taste tester's experience, it really doesn't make a lot of difference. If you want to boil them before, just take a pot with a little bit of water in it and put the poppy seeds in and just let them boil bring it to a boil and then let it simmer just for an hour or so. We'll soften them right up. Draining them is really where the fun begins, because you got to find, probably a coffee filter is the best way to do it, just pouring that solution into the coffee filter and just squeezing all the water out. But like I said, if you're not going to boil the poppy seeds, I think you're going to be A-okay. So I'm just going to pour the poppy seeds into the honey, and then I'm going to just mix them together, and it's just making this kind of this paste, which you'll see. And really, it's just so easy. You'll see. And that's it. There you go. All right. I want to talk some more about fillings. Fillings are a great way to get kids involved in the process, because I think maybe kids aren't so precise in terms of with cookie cutters and that sort of thing. But they depend. The older the child, the more involved in the process that they can get. But filling is a great time to get the kids involved, especially thinking about what they would like to put in a Hamantaschen. So some of the things that we've experimented with are cream cheese and jelly, that combination, Nutella, M&Ms, chocolate, those sorts of fun things. Just have fun with it. Like I said, there's a difference between dairy and parf. So if you're going to use Nutella, you're going to be making a dairy Hamantaschen. A lot of the real popular fillings are fruit fillings. So you can do either a pie filling, like a cherry pie filling, any sort of pie filling, or preserves. So I opt to go with preserves. And right here I have a cherry preserve, and also I have an apricot. So apricot's like a real traditional filling for Hamantaschens. Let's start with our MUN, okay? I just take a little bit of MUN, probably 1/2 teaspoon worth, and I put it in the middle of my Hamantaschen. Then I just fold the Hamantaschen. These are going to be a little dry. Into a triangle. And again, this is a personal preference, okay? Some people like to have a lot of filling show, and some people like to have a little filling show. But I just pinch them together, just a little, and they're going to open up a little in the oven too. And there's my first one, my first MUN Hamantaschen. So just make sure that you're pinching everything together and that it's pretty well adhered, so that it doesn't. First time that I decided to make Hamantaschen, my father-in-law told me that he wanted me to make some creative versions. So my favorite mixture is chocolate and peanut butter, anything. Chocolate and peanut butter, anything. So I decided I was going to make chocolate and peanut butter Hamantaschen. So I decided to make a chocolate Hamantaschen dough with a peanut butter filling. So I tried regular peanut butter, then I tried peanut butter morsels, which if you've read, they're so good, those things. And everything tasted good, it just didn't look so appetizing. So then we decided, well, maybe we just take a plain, like my plain sugar cookie dough, and just make the chocolate peanut butter on the inside. So we took Reese's peanut butter cups, and the whole funny thing is that you're gonna start making Hamantaschen, and everyone's gonna have an opinion. So, oh, you should try the yeast dough. No, I like the sugar cookie dough better. No, and you're never going to be able to please everyone. So I think the way that is the easiest way to make Hamantaschen that everyone likes is, for me, it's just sticking with the basics. So I just stick with the basics. I say, well, everyone likes jelly fillings and everyone likes MUN, so I'll just do that. So really, around Purim, I make I don't know, 100, trying different ones for everyone. And that way I know that I'm going to make everyone happy. But really the only person I really want to make happy, of course, Ross and Marion, but really Grandma. I want to make sure Grandma and Ruth are happy with my creations because they're my baking gurus. So, okay. So the other thing is, I think in that generation, the older generation, they really have fond memories. The way that they remember holidays is food. So if you can make stuff that's authentic, enough, that you're really going to be happy with the end product. So I'm just going to fold all of these up. I should have done that sheet because they're more moist. It's hard when they're dry. I always try to make a little Hamantaschen for Ross. It started with Ross, and then when I had my daughter, I make little ones for her too. So I try to make little cookies, miniature of whatever I bake for them. So I have these little circles right here. They're less than perfect, but they'll do the job to make little tiny Hamantaschen. So, okay, so I'm going to just fold all these up. The longer the dough sits out, the harder it is to work. So you can, if it's getting too dry, you can just spray it with a little water. You can use a little water in your hands or milk or whatever. But usually it's okay. So we're just making those. There's just something about making food for my family that just, I don't know, it makes me feel closer to God in some way. And so I think helping to teach my child about the holidays through cooking, it just makes me feel like, I don't know, I'm just taking my Judaism to the next level. I don't know if you want to use that, but it's hard to explain. Okay, so we're just pinching these into little Haman's hats or ears or pockets or whatever you interpreted them to be. And here's the other thing to remember. You see those beautiful machine-made Hamantaschen that you buy or eat on Purim? Yours are never going to look that way because we're not machines. We're human. So ours are going to look. Ours are just going to. Each one's going to be different, just like each of us is different. Mishloach Menot are a Purim tradition, and that's where we make presents for our friends. It's sort of a mitzvah on Purim, and also we give gifts to the poor as part of the holiday as well. So for us, we like to give our gifts to the poor through Federation, and to give our gifts to family. I think that's why, or to friends. That's why I make so many Hamantaschen. Is how fun is it to be able to take a basket of Hamantaschen over to your friends who probably aren't expecting them. I would think they're not expecting them, and just give them a little treat, an unexpected treat. I mean, I think that's so much fun, and really, I know your friends are going to enjoy it, but it's going to make you feel even better because giving unexpected gifts to people is so much fun. So, but then if they give you feedback about the fillings that they like and they don't like, you're like, okay, I'll try to remember that for next year. But and the thing is that you want to try not to. It's better to have less filling than more, because if you put too much filling in, they're going to overflow and melt and sort of make a mess, which isn't obviously the worst thing, but it's if you want to keep things neat, the best way is to just put about, like a half a teaspoon of filling in. But you can experiment. And if you don't want them to look neat, then that's good too. Some people make their Hamantaschen without any of the filling showing. I guess if you wanted to make them a serious filling, you could do that so people didn't know what they were biting into. That would be kind of fun. But it's your own tradition. Okay, now we're going to get to the little ones. Let's see how this works. Okay. So I just try to make a little tiny. There. And that one's probably going to overflow, so we'll probably take a little bit out. But these are just the little baby ones. And if you were going to include your kids or your nieces or your nephews or your grandkids, this would be a fun project for them. Would just be to set some wax paper on a counter for them and let them have their own dough and roll it out and make the ones that they wanted. And with Hamantaschen, you want them to be in a triangle, but when you're working with kids, they can be whatever shape you want. So there they are, all ready to go. And then of course, I have to give them one last pat because that's just who I am. And into the oven they go. Let's say your dough came out a little runny, it's a little moist, and you're just worried that they're going to lose their shape in the oven, you can pop these in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes if you want to, just to harden them up a little bit. But I don't have that problem because it's a little more dry once they sit on the counter. So into the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm just going to check my Hamantaschen. So I just put the second batch in. But really what I look for, these are definitely done. What I'm looking for is just the brown edges around the Hamantaschen. And look, I left my little ones in there, and sure enough, they're probably a little more overdone. But that's okay. Some people like them really crispy. So here they are. So what I do is I'm just going to take them off the parchment with my spatula. And I put them just on a wire rack. And just let them cool. Just let them cool. I don't like to leave them on the pan because I feel like the moisture sort of could make them a little soggy, though the parchment paper does help with that. But here they are. You want to have some cookies? Which one? So now once you've baked and they've cooled, you get to enjoy. From our family to yours. Happy Purim. You love those. Thank you, Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta. Thank you for letting us cook our favorite cookies, Hamantaschen. Happy Purim.